you so much. Well, welcome, Columbia CSL. It's been a beautiful, peaceful entry into this day. I really so much appreciate it. You know, we're all coming together to remember who and whose we are, and I'm really happy to be with you. You know, our organization, Centers for Spiritual Living, it's leadership, it's affiliate member centers, it's spiritual leaders, it's ministers and practitioners and laity members. All see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual values, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individuality and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. I think here at Columbia, we certainly know this among ourselves. We strive to assist individuals in their own evolutionary awakening process as we encourage others by our own word and action to lift and live courageous, fearless lives and to be passionate about life and its possibilities. So today I'm going to continue on our monthly theme with CSL called A Pause for Guidance. Last week I spoke about to me, by me, through me, and as me, based on the model that Dr. Michael Beckwith designed to help us understand the process of our spiritual maturity or our human evolution. So today we're talking about you are a spiritual broadcasting station. So hopefully we can come through this message with a little more clarity in how we can be a conduit or a channel for the fullness of divine expression. So I think, we're always looking for ways to pull ourselves together to get harmony and balance in life. And so I thought this was kind of a cool title. You know, it's time to defrag our bandwidth and up our amps. Because really, whatever name you call it, it's all energy. And therefore, we are that energy, which is complete within itself and known as formed and unformed, both static and always moving. So let's explore how to perceive ourselves and life in a way that not only helps us to emit our frequency congruently and powerfully, but that allows us to lean into the utter mystery of who and what we are. So I further submit that this process might have something to do with cleaning up our story, about how our lives have unfolded to create who we are, pulling all the fragmented pieces together. For example, of how this can be done, I want to share the Bible, the story of the Bible, in just simply 50 words. Are you ready? God made, Adam bit, Noah arced, Abraham split. Joseph ruled, Jacob fooled, Bush talked, Moses balked. Pharaoh plagued, people walked, sea divided, tablet guided. Promised landed, Saul freaked, David peaked, God walked, love talked, anger crucified, hope died, love rose, spirit flamed, work spread, God remained. And to give it that grand finish in metaphysical terms, God is, I am, it is, and so it is. So how long is your story? Imagine for a moment you want to play a card game that requires an entire deck of cards. Now, before you can play the game, you have to retrieve the deck from wherever it might be. If the cards are spread all over a room, the time needed to gather them together and put them in order would be much greater than if they were sitting on the table nicely organized. A deck of cards spread all over a room can be thought of as a fragmented deck of cards, much like the fragmented data on a hard drive that, when gathered together, defragmented, might equal a file you want to open or a process from a particular software program. We are not always tuned into the motherboard. Would you agree? And you know, when we are and we do receive what we feel is a clear message from spirit, we often autocorrect, meaning we merely extract from unlimited possibility what we can accept. And we can only accept that which corresponds to who we believe we are, human beings who are often seeking to be connected and receive comfort from that which knows. So, this is the first premise I see we need to address to defrag our bandwidth, affirming our connection as the point of God consciousness. Ernest Holmes has said, there is a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. There is a power for good, a universal power, and I let it use and express through me is a little bit different. And perceived in this manner, it affirms the presence of Source working through us, rather than I, the individual, trying to get me some of that good. The truth is that the power of good is expressing itself all the time, as the highest and best of itself in exact proportion as to our belief about who we are and what life can be by means of us. So no matter what we think about ourselves, however, the full power and presence is moving and expressing in us and through us all the time. Nothing we can think or do can ever alter the infinite intelligence, that universal creative power from creating out of itself more of itself. And we don't have to earn or deserve this power for good working in our lives. Even when we are not conscious of this power and presence, it's still here, or we wouldn't be. We need to align our minds with the truth of our nature of being. I think the truth of the nature of all being, and allow this good to flow through us, procuring abundance of all good in our lives. And this is how we allow the power for good to use us. We are simply a channel that needs to be tuned in to the frequency of the mother of all broadcasting stations in order for us to defrag our bandwidth and up our amps. Have you ever said, my brain hurts when trying to grasp a new concept? I go through it all the time with technology. It's funny I'm talking about it. But like computer technology or math or politics, something, or perhaps it's an unexpected announcement, like a sudden death of a friend that you will not accept in that moment. And you may have even said, I can't get my mind around it. I think this is what often happens in our day-to-day lives and relationships, our jobs, daily news within the environment of interest we hold. It also happens when we are asked to let go of who we believe we are and our present life conditions as true, and see ourselves as whole, complete, and perfect, just the way we are. Think about that for a moment. Think about how much resistance comes up when someone says to you, you are whole, complete, and perfect just the way you are. Because we are nothing less than spiritual beings with the same unlimited creative intelligence, the same power and presence to bring into manifest reality anything we so desire and choose. I just can't get my mind around that. Isn't this then our work? At the root of the root, this is our work. So to build the circuitry, we need faith in the universal creative process, which is the sacred trinity of co-creation through the universal natural law of cause and effect. Trusting that all we need is sourced inside. To clear the bandwidth, we must develop focus, recenter on truth as many times as may be required. And to up our amps or attain the greatest reach, the purest message, we need to develop the chops to speak with authority on who we are and what makes up life's meaning for us. Now, there are those who look to God to do it for them. Those who look to themselves as responsible for creating their reality, and those who carry and both philosophy here, who align with both the spiritual principles and natural laws and have faith that the universal creative process, inspired by love and made manifest through law, will procure divine right action. They do their work and bow to the mystery. So I've just shared with you 3 different mindsets. Now, the most common in my mind, but in the great mystery, there are many in between, is being reliant upon ourselves, solely taking upon all the responsibility, and therefore not open to the infinite mind or divine guidance. I think most people that come into a metaphysical teaching or a part of the CSL communities really get, at least intellectually, they are not separate from God. But they may allow the mystery and the universal process by means of how we choose to direct our thought, words, and actions not be front and center. So the divine plan, which we often hear spoken about, oh, God's got a divine plan, and divine right action are not the same thing. So the divine plan is the mysterious predestined path that God has created for humankind's exploration and discovery of the nature of being. That's what we as metaphysicians believe the divine plan is. It isn't how would I say this, written in time, space, or specifics. It's simply a predestined path created for humankind to explore and discover the nature of being, the nature of their own being. Now, divine right action is the corresponding response of universal law to the impress of our thought and desire of who we choose to be. They work so beautifully together. Many faith traditions believe that God is separate from humanity and does as he wishes without the creative assistance of any of his creatures, while the tribal person assumes a place in creation that is dynamic, creative, and responsive. For the Native American Indian, the ability of all creatures to share in the process of ongoing creation makes things sacred. God is all, and everything already exists. So what are we going to be with this knowledge? As metaphysicians, we too understand that we are co-creators of our reality and shifters of the collective consciousness as the sacred complement to universal cause, by both thinking with the one mind and by being the conduit through which the matter is created. I'm going to repeat that. As metaphysicians, we too understand that we are co-creators of our reality and shifters of the collective consciousness as the sacred complement to universal cause, by both thinking with the one mind and being the conduit through which matter is created. I'm going to share a story with you now to illustrate our unity through the frequencies we emit. When a matriarch elephant speaks her messages, she reaches more than her tribe. Many others receive the messages through their feet. Scientists call this seismic communication. Vocal cords 8 times the size of ours send out 2 frequencies at the same time, high and low, moving through the earth 5 or 6 miles. The ground vibrations travel through the skeleton, and feeling becomes hearing. A researcher from Stanford U buried speakers above the ground and in the ground. Even an elephant's footsteps provide useful information about its size and its whereabouts. If you know how to listen, this dramatic landscape hums with signals, and the web of sound holds a whole community together. It's kind of like us. We omit a low frequency of our ego mind and a higher frequency of our natural knowingness at the same time, So like the elephants, our ego, when the expression of our deeper subconscious is limited in our belief patterns, sends a message into race consciousness that sounds the alert or the alarm, attracting to it a similar energetic vibration. And at the same time, our above ground sounding, the vibrational frequency which changes others' lives through love, respect, honor, and compassion, also draws to us through the laws of compensation and attraction, affirmation of our true nature of being. So here we see that not only are we a spiritual broadcasting station, but that the results of which are always demonstrating our oneness, whether we like it or not, agree or not. I read something a couple of weeks ago. I really like this illustration. And it's about a professor who tried to illustrate particle wave duality with the following example. He said, imagine you are a 2D, so two-dimensional being living on a white canvas. So just close your eyes for a moment. Just picture that white canvas, and you are the two-dimensional being. Now imagine a lipstick of a cylindrical shape is placed on an overhead projector. If you place it on the projection plane standing up, comme ça, the projection will be a circle. If this image were to be projected on your canvas, the two-dimensional beings would say the thing causing this image must be a circle. On the other hand, if the lipstick is placed on the projection plane laying down, the projected image would be a rectangle. So our 2D friends would doubtlessly say, whatever causes this thing must be of a rectangular shape. So it cannot possibly be the same object that caused the circular image. Now, what our 2D friends fail to understand with their two-dimensional brains is that the lipstick is neither a circle or a rectangle, but something so much more complex, their two-dimensional minds have no chance of comprehending. A three-dimensional object. We are multi-dimensional beings. And Dr. Ernest Holmes said, we begin to disclaim what we appear to be and affirm what we know ourselves to actually be, as our statements dissolve wrong, subjective tendencies, providing in their place a correct concept of life and reality. We will automatically be lifted out of our failure. Impelling forces sweeping everything before them will set us free, even when we trust in spirit and accept the workings of the law. So if actions speak louder than words, then what speaks louder than actions? Our thoughts. And what speaks louder than our thoughts? Our energetic presence. Does it flow in the universe in the evolution of its becoming, or is it rendered to a static state? So why does fragmentation take place? And how can we learn to both live with what is and create new ways of thinking and being appreciatively? Well, if you know anything about file systems in general, which I will relate to as our subconscious belief patterns, you may have already guessed that the file system was the culprit in this fragmentation business. But why? Well, fragments happen when the file system, our self-image, allows gaps to develop between the different pieces of a file, our story. Sometimes fragmentation happens because the file system reserved way too much space for the file when it was first created and had an expectation of the same story continuing into our future and therefore left open areas around it, innately knowing that we were born unlimited potential, but just didn't live into it for one reason or another. Now, previously deleted files which we can call denials or suppressed feelings, are also another reason the file system fragments data when written. When a file is removed, its previously occupied space is now open for new files to be saved to it, new thoughts leaning into the truth of who we are. So as you can imagine, if that now open space isn't large enough to support the whole size of the new file, then only a part of it can be saved. Old limited belief patterns neutralizing new conscious thoughts. The rest must be positioned somewhere else, hopefully nearby, but not always. Having some pieces of a file in one place while the others are located elsewhere is going to require the hard drive to look through the gaps or spaces occupied by the other files. New affirming conscious thoughts of who and whose we are until it can gather all the necessary pieces to bring the file together for you. Ergo, the need to pause for guidance, to be still, to contemplate, to meditate, so as not to blow a fuse, to allow your faith in divine order to do its thing. So while it's frustrating that fragmentation exists, which slows the computer down a little bit, you might think about it as necessary, in a sense. This small problem instead of a much larger one. Just embrace both our humanity daily as a given and our growing capacity of exploring and authentically expressing who we are becoming as each of us opens to reveal and discover our innate potential. Sometimes when I want to lose my mind and just zone out, I watch reruns of America and Britain's Got Talent. And I did so, a couple of days ago. I cried my way through it. Why? Well, for the unrealized dream of becoming all that I desired to be. And the real tears were not about an unrealized dream, really, but about the memory of not being supported by those who professed to love me, not being heard or seen or valued. The reality is that the dream as a young child was created as an escape from terror and a deep need to feel special and worthy. I look back over my life and see it clearly as I do my life now, and I know that without a shadow of a doubt that I am right where I am meant to be. Why? Because divine right action is taking place as a result of both my high and low frequencies, and that my deepest desires to move and touch and support and inspire others to live full out and enjoy have been being expressed all the way along. We are spiritual broadcasting stations, and we do live out loud, even those of us who claim to be introverted, and even when we touch in or dig deeply into the dark night of the soul. For that mystery to us, the parts of our becoming that hold within them the blueprint of this universe are ever rising up to meet us in God's timing as we continue our conscious work to defrag our vision of ourselves and expand our bandwidth and up our amps. I know this to be true for me, and I also know it to be true for you. God bless, and so it is.